Hello, my name is Alejandro Canales. The artwork I have chosen is a piece that French painter Paul Gauguin painted of the highly respected and well-known businesswoman Madame Junot in her cafe. Titled Night Cafe, the piece is a combination of two artworks that Vincent van Gogh painted that utilized her portrait and a painting of the cafe setting that he combined into one organic piece. The painting was created in November 1888 with oil and canvas, and the painting can be found today in the Pushkin Museum of Fine Arts in Russia, where it is on exhibit. The Pushkin Museum of Fine Arts currently includes over 700,000 paintings, sculptures, drawings, applied works, photographs, and archaeological and animalistic objects. The painting sits at 72 by 92 centimeters dimensionally. The art piece is a basic interior painting that is of a cafe in Arles, France. In the foreground, and the largest weighted portion of the artwork, is a portrait of Madame Junot herself sitting at a table with her head resting on her arm. She is seen here with a black coat and a white interior, and her hair is done in a very neat bun. As you move towards the background, you can see a billiards table with 3 visible billiards and a small black and white cat at its base. Further beyond that, you can see the residents of the cafe, which consists mostly of men and few women, whom of which were prostitutes that utilized the establishment. Gauguin even incorporated the local postman, who was a known acquaintance of the two artists during their time in Arles. The wall is painted with a horizontal line separating the two halves, the top being red and the bottom being yellow, contrasting the dark characters that are in front of it. There's a painting on the top side that is red with a small yellow lamp in it. The frame is also yellow. The men are wearing very boring clothing that seem nearly monochromatic all entirely, while in contrast all the women are wearing colorful and eye-catching clothing with patterns. All the women seem to share this trait except for Madame Junot. This seems to hint towards her role in the piece of artwork. From a cultural studies point of view, the portrait of Madame Junot gives off hints towards not only her status in society, but how she is viewed in her community. Being better dressed than her patrons in the cafe, Madame Junot is able to separate herself from the happenings of the customers. Marxism plays a role as being an entrepreneur. She was wealthy, as not only did she own the establishment of the cafe, but appropriated the prostitution that went on there. The portraits thus separates her and elevates her status from that of a French commoner, as portraits are intended mostly for the wealthy. Portraits hold iconic value due to the skill needed to execute them correctly, and our artists are no stranger to the creation process of creating one. This is evident of the fact that they went on to create upwards to 6 different portraits for Madame Junot throughout their entire lifetimes. Each of the portraits all began from a charcoal sketch that Gauguin created when they met. Van Gogh would make 6 total portraits for Junot, but he made sure that he altered them to provide a different feel to the painting. He would also then gift them to other friends. One was intended for Gauguin, one for his brother Theo, one for himself, and one for Madame Junot. Van Gogh states in his letter that he wants to change things up and never keep things the same when he makes a portrait. He wants to challenge the viewer to let them see what he wants them to see. This is why different paintings of the same subject look different or off. He changes them. This is why Van Gogh does paintings. He prefers not to have things cut and dry. He wants to add his own little twist to them. The cafe as a whole provides a view of gender studies as it shows men soliciting women for services. The cafe, sometimes referenced as a brothel, really gives an undertone to the feeling of this painting as to why the people are there and what they would be doing. There are many formal elements at play in this painting. Unlike Van Gogh, who is widely respected for his use of tactile textures in his paintings that leave the surface thick with paint well above the canvas, Gauguin's approach is more conventional as he layers his paint uniformly. The painting utilizes overlapping heavily as it places Madame Junot largely in the foreground and the residents deep in the background. Junot covers most of the right side, while some negative space is on the opposite end, which depicts mostly wall from the building. Scale is measured accurately as everything in the painting conveys proper spacing and size. The cups are the size of Junot's hand, and the billiards are in the proportion of the table they're resting on. The cat is the size of the lower portion of the table leg, and when reference to the other art piece, you can see that the table is actually quite far away in the perspective. This all begins back at the Yellow House as the two artists convened to Arles, France at the request of Vincent, who had been in the city for quite some time already. He came up with the idea that the two artists could be using one another to increase creativity, collaborate, and learn from each other. Having purchased the Yellow House that the two would stay in, Vincent had big dreams for the art industry that he would try to start out of his house. His brother Theo, who was an art broker, would be the one to help out and distribute the art pieces. Coincidentally, it was Theo who had introduced the two artists to one another and sparked this whole relation that began between the two artists. Without him, none of this would have happened. The two would paint day in and day out during their time in the city as inspiration came from many angles. The area would prove to be rich in inspiration as the two would paint the city's commonplaces rather oftenly. Genoa would be painted several times over and in many different ways, and Van Gogh's arguably most recognizable painting, Starry Night, was painted here in the city of Arles. You can even see early renditions of the famous Starry Sky in his other paintings created in this area. After 9 long weeks, this would all prove to be a dying endeavor as the money they had saved up had begun to diminish and tensions were running high. A sense of cabin fever plagued the two artists, which would deteriorate their relationship and lead to their final eventful meeting. On December 23, 1888, Gauguin would confront Vincent and tell him he wished to leave the city, and this did not hold well with Van Gogh. The Yellow House would then be solidified as being infamous in art history as it was the place of which Vincent famously cut off his own ear with a razor blade after threatening Gauguin. Some even speculate that Gauguin had attacked him as both artists would hint to an unknown event prior to Gauguin's departure in letters to Vincent's brother Theo. Gauguin would never see Van Gogh in person again, but their time at the Yellow House was not wasted, however, as both artists would benefit from their time here for the rest of their careers. In fact, this proved to be true as by the end of their time at the Yellow House, Gauguin would have a revelation in which he abandons his old art form and begins to paint his preferred post-impressionist art style. Shortly before his death, Gauguin would go on to create this art piece, titled, "Where Do We Come From? What Are We? Where Are We Going?" In my opinion, I think it's a fitting title, seeing how he abandoned a lot of things to go pursue his dreams of Tahiti. My artwork is a combination of the two painters' works as they famously utilize each other's influences in their art. I really attempted to make things blend together to look natural, considering that a lot of the artwork done at the time looks fairly similar. I used Van Gogh's Starry Night as my sky because it was not only his most iconic artwork, but in my opinion one of the best artworks there's ever been. It's given you a chance to see what an unpolluted sky would look like at night during that time period. You can really see the techniques that Gauguin took from Van Gogh at the time. I mean, he is quoted saying, "Art is either plagiarism or revolution." The setting is of Van Gogh's painting of the cafe in Arles that they frequented, and as such I have included both the artists here at the billiards table. I chose to create this type of art piece in order to really drive home the fact that during the time the two artists had in Arles, they would play off each other so deeply they could put both of their artworks together and see little difference in style. I was also hoping that it would kind of come together as if all the works that they did through these 9 weeks and everything that they did leading up to this point in time would all just come together and finish off with this one last coup de grace. In the foreground, I placed my chosen art piece as it provides good scale and looks kinda natural from the point of view. Almost as if this was a photograph and not so much as a painting. You're seeing through the eyes of someone who's there and not so much as someone who painting a representation of what you're seeing. It almost makes you wonder what it would be like to be there in France in 1888. I wonder if it'd be fun or not. And here are my questions. Would you be able to drop everything in your life to pursue your passion? And how long did the two artists spend in the Yellow House together?